Welcome to Slash Forward. We're going to follow along with poor, confused, innocent Marie as she visits her bestie's farmhouse in the whimsical French countryside. A great place to go to unwind and relax, whether that takes the form of secluded study sessions and late-night tea, or arbitrarily roaming farmhouses with intent to commit some of the most brutal family annihilations. But what's the motivation here? And are things really as they seem? We'll take a look as we open on a damaged young lady whispering a mantra of unity.
I won't let anyone come between us.
Before flashing back to that same young lady staggering through the woods covered in tattered, bloody rags. The overall aesthetic creates an atmosphere where the tension is fairly high. These are intercut with scenes of driving and smoking before the two disparate storylines cross and become forever entwined. Marie then wakes up in another car during less bloody and sticky times. She's traveling with Alex to her parents' old farmhouse. She reveals that her opener was actually a dream she had in which she felt as though she was chasing herself. So scratch that off your list of things that'll be relevant later. Through conversation, we learn that these ladies are party girls taking a break from celebrating their bodies for a study vacation to help them prepare for exams. At the palatial estate, we find Hendrix, the family dog, loyally following Tommy Boy, who acts like an entitled little twat, while Mama brings in the wash. It's an idyllic little scene that's framed by a creeper in a nearby murder van getting himself sucked off by the disembodied head of a young lady. The French countryside. As the sun sets, the ladies arrive at the cornfield that demarcates the entryway to the property. Alex stops suddenly and hops out to pursue what she thought was a person skulking about in the corn rows. Marie attempts to follow her out, but quickly becomes turned around in the sea of stalks and cobs. Until, that is, the car's engine starting back up gives her an auditory landmark that allows her to find her way back to Alex, the little trickster. She laughs about it, but now Marie is all sweaty. But they're soon at the boring and uneventful farmhouse and are greeted by Pops and Tom, along with loyal Hendrix letting out a low, aggressive, welcoming growl. Once introductions and greetings have concluded, Alex gives her guest a tour before sending her up to the room where she'll be staying. This is sure to be the perfect environment for relaxing and focusing on the upcoming exams. They unwind with some tea and talk about which boys they're pursuing, with Alex encouraging Marie to get out there and play the field a bit. But she's kind of a homebody, and boys are pretty disgusting. Instead, she goes out to have a swing and a smoke and stares wistfully into the bathroom window that provides a view straight up Alex's ass crack. Afterward, she heads upstairs and gets herself set up with some funky reggae music, so you know what that means. She lays back into a restful position and begins touching herself, which is really none of our business. With her preoccupied and everyone else sleeping soundly, the noisy old creeper van pulls right up to the house. Post-climax, she notices Hendrix barking and the parents are startled awake by the front buzzer. What comes next is a little hard to explain. Marie sees this hulking brute of a man slashing at Pops' face. Then, after neutralizing the dog, he carefully secures his victim's head betwixt two balusters before sliding their curio in such a way as to knock his head clean off. No, that was actually easy to explain, I suppose. Hearing some strange noises, Mother ventures out to check on things and finds herself face to face with the filthy savage. Marie retreats to muffled sounds of distress and mutilation. What's next might seem odd, but what she's doing is trying to trace back the location of the wall jack so as to plug in this landline phone in order to call for help. But the floorboards moaning under the heft of the intruder calls for a change of plans. She makes like the guest room is unoccupied to dissuade him from a thorough investigation, despite the fact that no small detail goes unnoticed by this hungry and experienced hunter. She does manage to evade capture or worse. Only when his footfalls carry him down the hall does she allow herself the luxury of gulping in oxygen like a dying fish. Alex, we learn, is a very heavy sleeper, only waking when she feels the cold touch of steel to her flesh. Now, under the cover of a new set of distressing sounds, Marie goes for the phone again, only to discover she was pursuing the coax plug the entire time. After a momentary despair, she comes to terms with the idea that the only way out of this is to proceed as quietly as possible into the house. While her best friend experiences untold brutality, she searches a nearby room for a phone. But again, approaching sounds force her to take cover. She's lucky that it's the mom who crawls in because she goes straight for the phone, revealing its location. But this also forces Marie to take a front row seat to an absolutely brutal bloodletting. She gurgles out her final breaths as he takes a few artistic flourishes, purely for the aesthetics, and then leaves. When Marie finally emerges, Mother has one simple question. It is a cruel world, my friend. Now she has a phone, but no dial tone. As she proceeds out again, she observes Tommy lose his nerve and take off running, attracting some very unwanted attention. This is enough to get her moving again. Not to help him, but to go check in on how Alex is doing. She finds her chained and bound, and before she can release her, they hear Tommy running out into the field calling for his mommy. His pursuer's not far behind, and after a couple of discharges, the screaming stops. Marie promises to return after she's found a functional phone and called for help, wanting to maintain the advantage of him not knowing she exists yet. However, there are no functioning phones in the house any longer. She stays just out of view as he loads Alex up for a midnight treat, and then when he goes back inside to select a trophy to commemorate his visit, she sneaks into the van to try to release her restraints. Unfortunately, she is not able to do so, and upon his emergence from the home, she postures herself up into a prime stabbing position. But he slides the door from the rear and drives off with both of them now in his cargo bay. While he blasts some French pop classics, Marie uses her knife to try to unlock the rear of the van, which she does successfully. So when he pulls up for some petrol, she now has a prime opportunity to escape. She leaves Alex with some protection and slowly makes her way toward the store. When the pump stops, she's forced to run silently and just barely makes it in. He's not far behind and actually has a rapport with Jimmy the clerk. He loves to chat him up with detailed questions about his sexual history, but he gets the sense that something is off, with Jimmy behaving less aroused than normal and his eyes darting all over. He is a cagey fellow, so he distracts Jimmy with a top-shelf request which allows him to hew his sternum crosswise, a huge betrayal after sharing so many of his sexual secrets. Sensing he's on the hunt again, he turns off the lights while Marie disgustingly retreats barefoot into the gas station men's room. He makes his way down the row of stalls while Marie nearly pops a vessel trying to keep herself quiet. Luckily for her, he suffers a bout of urinary amnesia, completely forgetting what he was doing after taking a mind-altering piss. Not one to sit on an advantage, Marie then ventures out slowly, but when the porcelain begins vibrating with the rumble of the truck engine, she hurries up to ensure she can scope his direction in order to notify the police. However, the call to the emergency line quickly turns contentious when she's not totally sure where she is. But he really wants to know where she is, but she wants him to already know where she is. It's a whole thing. So she takes the situation into her own hands by hopping into Jimmy's hot rod and taking off in pursuit. Before long, she has his taillights in her sight, and she leaves a good distance until the greasy dirtbag pulls off the road. Then she kills her lights and follows him in. The hour is late, however, and she gets a little sleepy. This causes her to lose him around a bend somewhere and miss a loop back because when she sees him again, it's directly behind her, and he playfully signals to her how he unloaded Jimmy's gun before he left. He gives chase, and while the speed advantage belongs to her, lack of familiarity with these dark back roads is a definite limiting factor. She eventually loses the road and catapults out into the forest. This does give her a good lead, however, so she's able to crawl out of the flaming wreckage, bleeding like a stuck pig, and escape into a defunct greenhouse nearby. She tends to her wounds with a filthy rag while staying low to avoid his torchlight. In a very metal development, she pulls out a garden post and slowly turns the attached barbed wire around it. But right when it appears the pursuer has become the pursued, he flips the roles back around again. He is a very resourceful predator. He starts by backing up her head to lock in the freshness, and once she's been subdued, he takes his time and really lets his fingers explore. Taking advantage of this distraction, Marie uses a blunt object to split his melon wide open, draining out its pulpy interior. Now she's able to shred his face to ribbons. She wisely gets in good and close to verify he's dead, and finds he still has a little kick in him, which she tempers with a prolonged smothering. Back at the petrol station, a couple of constables arrive to investigate the joint. They quickly find the body left behind, and while calling it in, the video reveals the events that transpired have greatly defied our expectations. This is necessary context, as when she pops the tailgate open, elated by their newfound freedom, Alex is not so easily convinced. She demonstrates her profound lack of gratitude by plunging her knife deep into Marie's diaphragm. But as she soon learns, psychosis imbues the sufferer with mystical powers, allowing Marie the intestinal fortitude needed to walk this off, grab a circular saw, and give chase. Now it's Alex inside the dream from the opening, but in real life.
Come on! What's going on?
Just drive, you ignorant slut. But the automobile will no longer start, relegating the poor boy to mere decorative material for the interior of the vehicle. When Marie finally cuts her way in, Alex has escaped out the front windscreen, but in the process took on some significant chunks of glass that are now warmly nestled within her ankle meat. She professes her love under extreme duress, which is all Marie really wanted to hear, but the shallowness of her proclamation is soon revealed when Alex betrays her by perforating her shoulder with the pry bar, demonstrating who the true villain is here. The final scene brings us full circle, revealing Marie is now housed in a 24-hour care facility where she spends her time committed to a one-sided relationship. Probably the worst thing about that ending, and the fact that it was so unearned with no real setup to speak of, is that the movie was pretty good prior to that. Nothing groundbreaking per se, but a solidly executed home invasion film with some really creative brutality. That's too bad. If you think you can handle more, be sure to check out this video next. And now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.